Drivers in the country, especially those who use the areas which are always jammed up with traffic, are complaining about the long hours they spend on the road. Many are getting very frustrated because they have to sit in their vehicles for long periods and they don't move that fast either. There are many who don't understand why the roads are not enough for their cars, and they are hoping that if anything could be done, the government of Ghana would come in and then do it for them to be able to move easily. They say this because there are plans that have been made, and most of these are geared towards success. But when there's this traffic jams and all these problems on the roads, it makes it difficult for them to have their aims and objectives come to pass. So right now they are hoping that by seeing to this problem, things will be made better for them to continue in their prosperity. Now, there have been many places in the city where traffic jams up so much that it's hard to even move for close to an hour. People are at the same place for a very long time, and a lot of people are very, very, very unhappy about this situation. Sometimes they'll be in the traffic, the light will be green, but they cannot go because there's no place for them to go to. And as this continues to happen, many are also complaining of the fuel which is being wasted as they crawl in the traffic. They spend too many hours inside their vehicles, and as the engine is running, their fuel is also being burned out. So, hopefully, if there's anything that could be done by the government of the nation, then they will be given some joy after it has been seen to. When we look at our roads that have been constructed in many parts of the suburbs, we would notice that there are some roads that have a lot of spaces on the curbs and in the slabs that divide the road. There have been some drivers who don't understand why this is for. In on some highways, for example, the 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 concrete slabs that divide the roads, they are just so large. And whilst many understand that it's for people who are crossing to have enough space to stand on, others feel it is just too big and it is taking up space. So they are hoping that if it could be reduced in the future, so that there will be more space for cars to go, they would be very, very happy. Now, we spoke to some trotro drivers also about this condition of traffic, and they've also expressed their views about it. Now, according to them, when they waste too much time in traffic, they have to spend more money on fuel, and because of this, they are not able to make the desired income. When they go back to car owners, their car owners do not care whether there was traffic or not, they collect their pay. So what is left is what these drivers take. Now the unfortunate thing is that sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. So on days like these where sometimes the traffic is so much, it doesn't help them because number one, they have to spend more fuel waiting at the same place for a long time. And number two, because they are at a standstill, the passengers that they have taken, they cannot take them to their destinations and come back quickly to take another batch of passengers. So, for example, if for every trip they make, they make about 20 CDs. If they go for only one trip, it's 20 CDs, but if they go for like 10 trips, that'll be 200 CDs. So, in a situation where there's traffic jamming up like this, there will not be a possibility for them to go for many more trips to make their monies go higher. So this is one thing they've also explained to us. But we've seen that there are some drivers who employ a different method. The routes that they normally use to take their passengers, they sort of gauge the time when there will be traffic. So they'll use those roads at the times when there's no traffic. But when they realize that traffic is going to build up, then they move from loading on those areas to other towns or other vicinities where there will not be traffic. So, for example, if a driver is moving from, let's say, um, Adenta to Circle all the time, now that there will be traffic at Circle, the driver will now move from Circle, will be loading from Circle to La Paz, so that during that time that there's traffic on the Circle to Adenta road, he'll be making some money on the Circle to La Paz road, so that he wouldn't have to wait for that long in the traffic on the roads that is being jammed up on the roads. And this is also a good method I will advise other trotro drivers to employ. What you do is, at the times where the traffic is going smoothly, you would do your work on those roads. But when you realize that at a certain time, for example, maybe after 5 or after 4, those roads are going to be jammed up with traffic, then you can look at a different route and a different place to work at, so that way you would be making the money you are supposed to make, which you will not be able to make anymore due to the traffic, but you'll be making it at other areas. Amongst these things that trotro drivers told us, another thing they told us was the unbearable heat. The unbearable heat. In our cities, it's not everywhere that there are enough long, tall trees and wide branches to provide shade on the road. There are some places that you see one or two trees, and there are other places where the trees continue to flow, so it forms some form of a canopy for the cars which are passing on the roads, and then they get shade. But there are some areas where there's absence of trees, there's no tree at all. So when the weather becomes very hot like that, the sun's intensity, it's felt very much in the vehicle. The vehicles of these trotros, they don't normally use air condition, and apart from that, there are like at least 12 to 15 people inside the trotros. There are even some trotros like the sprinters that take more than 15, some 25 and above. There are even some that go to 30. So this means that all those numbers of people in the car will be competing for the little oxygen in the car. This makes it very difficult to breathe properly in some situations. Apart from the fact that they are all competing for oxygen, the cars, the trotros, they are so hard and they are so much of metal that sometimes the people who are very close to the sides of the trotro feel the heat of the car burning their skin. So it's very serious. Some drivers tell us that sometimes they even feel very dizzy when they are doing their work and they reach those areas where the weather becomes very hot without any trees present. And like in some situations where there's traffic, if you're in such an area, it is even worse, because the drivers explain to us that even though there are no trees, once the car is moving, because the car is moving at a certain speed, the wind is able to blow through the vehicle for the heat to just subside a little. But in a situation where there's traffic jammed up and there are no trees and the weather is hot, the air does not really flow into the vehicle. The air and the wind, you not get any flowing wind, any wind that will come into the vehicle. So it's very, very unbearable for them. Sometimes the heat is just so much that every sound that is even heard becomes very problematic to them. Most of them tell us how they suffer from headaches and migraines because of these harsh conditions that they go through. Even some passengers have also been complaining that sometimes it's just too much. They feel like getting out of the vehicle, but they cannot. But they have to endure all these things as they are on the roads. So we realize that what we have to do is that in the city, in the suburbs, in those areas where traffic normally builds up, we think that there should be some cultivation of some trees at this time, so that in the next 5 to 10 years, those trees will be tall enough and big enough to provide shade in those areas. Many people are really suffering, and we've even had some people who have been seriously um, injured and seriously, sick because of such heat waves that happen on the roads. So hopefully we'll see the solution to that. One thing we do know is that the presence of trees are very important. In many areas, there are not enough trees, and people don't see it as a big problem. They don't think it's anything, but it's very important to have a tree in those areas. So we are hoping that the right authoritative body which is responsible for planting of these trees would go to the things, the road dividers, those slabs there. You can just make some small holes, at the right intervals in the middle of them, and plant some trees and some other types of green shrubs or anything that will just help to reduce the heat, the intensity of the heat, and all the carbon dioxide that is, being emitted at those places. That would be a very good thing. It will go a long way to help these drivers and those passengers that use the roads in such areas where the heat is just too much to bear, and thinking about the fact that they don't even enjoy air condition inside the cars. And there are some passengers who have even complained about the torment they go through because some windows, these glass windows of the throttle, some of them they don't open. There are some that you can at least open it and get a little air coming through, but there are some they don't open at all. And there are some that they are supposed to open, but because there's so much dirt and some form of grit accumulated inside them, it is hard to move it. Even if you use all your strength, you cannot move it. So those types of passengers really go through a lot, trying to get some good air to breathe, but they don't really receive any. And this is some of the problems that could be solved if such trees are there, because the trees will provide a shade from the heat, and they will not need to worry about opening their window glasses, glass windows, even if it cannot open. So we have to start ensuring a culture of planting some trees in a lot of areas. It's very, very necessary. Already we've seen some of this exercise going on at some places, some new roads that have been constructed, and even there have been some old roads where we've seen a group of people following this exercise, planting trees and doing all these good works. But it doesn't have to end there. There are many places, even in Accra, in Tema, and in other parts of the city, where trees could be planted. A lot of places, so we could help, make the situation of frustration in traffic become a little, bearable for our drivers and also for our passengers. Think about it. Another thing we could also employ is the introduction of air conditioning in some trotters. We think very much that it could do a lot of good. I mean, we know that there are air conditioners in some long journey vehicles which travel, for example, from Accra to Aflawu, or when you are going to any other long distance. You have two options of taking one that does not have an aircon condition inside, and one that has an air condition just at a little higher price. So for example, if the one without an aircon is 5 cedis, the one with aircon will be something like 8 cedis. Now what we are saying is that it should not only be to such long journey vehicles, it should also work with these trotters that work in and around our communities. For example, maybe Adenta to Dodoa, or Adenta to Amehia, or Ashie, or whichever place that's short distance. There could be an option for air conditioning in the vehicles, whereby the passengers will be made to know this one is an air conditioned car. You are going to pay just an extra 50 pesos or an extra 1 CD on it, and it could go a long way to reduce all these troubles. So that's it. Let's see what you think about these drivers who are complaining about the traffic and all the unbearable things that happen on the road, and let's see what your suggestions are to bring a solution to this problem. Thank you very much for listening, and please do have a very, very nice day.